like crazy intimidating. Like the gym I started at, I always said, I'm like, I feel like if I started anywhere else, I probably would have quit after like probably like a month, maybe. I probably would have been over it and just like, that's not for me.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
It's yeah.
I think the only reason why I started it was because when I was in the Marines, I did my PTI course, and
Yeah.
I hated it to start with. Like I thought it was like mega gay, and I was like, I'm not fucking going
Yeah.
in there rolling around with all you losers, like, you know.
Yeah.
And then I had a Commonwealth Games gold medalist turn up in the gym I was working at, and another guy who's a purple belt, and he said, like, do you wanna start doing some jiu-jitsu classes? And I was like, that, yeah, sweet. And I bought a load of mats, and every gym I've been to since then, I set up a dojo, which was pretty cool. So yeah,
Amazing.
and that was like 11 years ago now. So
Ah, crazy. That's so good, bro. I had like my experience was I'd walked into the gym. I was so scared driving. It's like an hour away from where I live. And I drove there and the classes were being run by like a 15-year-old kid that I went to school with. And I just remember being like, ah, okay, whatever. And he's just like, oh no, we're just gonna roll today. I was like, okay, cool. So he's like, I'll have to take the first one with you. I was like, okay. I was like 92 kilos and I was like fit and I'd been gymming a lot and he absolutely destroyed me. I think I tapped like 30 times in 5 minutes. And I left there just being like, fuck, I've got to figure this out. I've got to learn like what this guy's doing. It's the craziest thing.
yeah, I was the same. I already had like the foundations of jiu-jitsu really just through doing that course, you know, learning
Yes.
side control, mount, you know, all the basic fundamental positions.
Yeah.
And so when I went to start doing jiu-jitsu at Exeter BJJ, it was pretty much it was the technical side of it. So my first ever class was a half guard sweep class,
Okay.
which I use to this day.
Amazing.
It's one of my like finited things I use. You know, the ones where you kind of get an underhook and you go really deep, head's nice and deep, and you're going for the legs and you roll underneath them.
Yes.
Those sorts of escapes. So those are the ones that I first learnt, and those are the ones that, you know, I hit up all the time going into the dog fight, switching back under, rolling
Yes.
back underneath, and all that sort of stuff.
It's so funny. You know, Dan Thornton is also in the Marines, and you had him on here as well. And that is his game. Like it's been the exact same for the last 15 years, and he still gets those sweeps on me every time. Just like crazy good fundamentals and just technically perfect. There's nothing, you know, it's coming. There's nothing you can do.
That's
But
what I
yeah,
try and
that
say.
stuff is
That's what I
great.
try and say to the guys here is that it's not about knowing lots and lots of really cool funky stuff. It's about being able to do the stuff that is fundamentally the foundation of doing jiu-jitsu, but doing it when people know that it's coming and there is fuck all else they can do about it, and that's how you know you're
Yeah,
getting good.
100%. Yeah. We're halfway through the sweep. The guy's already like, fuck, again.
It's almost like getting wrist locked on it. You're like, you didn't just fucking do that.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Yes.
Mate, I can't
It's
believe it's been like what? I must have been like what? How long have we been doing the podcast? 5 years? I must have been trying to get you on here
Mm.
for like 4 years at least.
Fuck, I know. I've been so bad. I'm like, from especially where we live, like we always joke, this place is so laid back, and everyone's like, it's my life is always lastminute.com. If I have to plan anything like 4 days, 3 days in advance, I'm like, fuck, you know, I don't know what I'm doing like for dinner tonight. It's 100% been my fault, bro. I've been so bad to like hard to lock down a time. But yeah,
Yeah.
stoked I finally made it on, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Well, look, we're flying straight into it. So, Nick Christy, welcome to the podcast. You are a photographer, a videographer, and you is it fine to say that you document and follow Jordy Smith around videoing when he's like doing all the tour stuff and all these videos?
Pretty much, yeah. I've been doing that for the last yeah, it must be for 5 years. Yeah, 2020, 5 years now. Just yeah, I think I was just kind of doing his South African stuff. We went and did Ghana and a bunch of places in Africa as well, Mozambique, and then 2022 was when I joined him full time on the tour, and yeah, just been following him around and pushing a button. It's pretty good living.
Mate, it's sick. And you know, the majority of the edits that come out of Jordy are your handiwork. And you know, I think almost to the point that you have almost a distinctive like mark and perspective, like how you're. I hate saying surf edits. It really annoys me. I don't know why. Um, like the films that you create and the edits and the clips and all that sort of stuff that come out there, I think they're a little bit more unique and forward thinking than a lot of the other guys on the tour do, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, thank you. Very appreciate it. Yeah, it's so funny. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. There's like I like doing things certain ways and filming certain lenses and obviously the surf stuff, the certain angles. And George has been doing it for so long as well. So he kind of knows what he wants to. So he's always kind of like involved as well, where he's like, oh bro, maybe we shoot this from this angle and maybe we do this. And so it's like a combined effort between the two of us. And it's that's such a cool like work environment, when you have your friend who's also like he's probably more into cameras and gear and stuff like that than I am. So just having somebody there that's always like that you can bounce stuff off of and try and create something slightly different, well, as different as you can with the surf stuff. Surfing is a pretty tricky one to do differently, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of in his benefit to learn about cameras and stuff like that
Mm.
because he's the one on the front of the lens, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's so funny. He actually messaged me like 10 minutes before we hopped on, yeah, and he was like, in West Stars, we shot with this camera called the Free Fly Ember, like a uh super slow-mo camera. Like it shoots crazy high frame rates. And he messaged me 10 minutes ago. He's like, oh, I've got to get one of these. Look, this is the water housing for it. And he's already like scheming about the next camera. We got to get one of these. Like, sick, bro. I'd love to work with one of those. But yeah, he's fully into it. He loves it. And definitely makes life much easier. We sit there and just plan like, hey, maybe we can do an edit like this for the next one, or hey, I found this cool track, maybe good for an edit. And yeah, so it's a fun work environment with Jords.
How much kit are you looking around with you? So if you've got lots of different cameras that do different things and you've got different
Mm.
lenses, obviously, and you know, you're going to have those massive telescopic lenses that come with it. Forgive me, I'm not, you know, really into,
Yeah.
I'm learning little bits of everything. So I don't know too much about photography and stuff like that. But if you're getting all these new cameras and all these new lenses and stuff, it's going to be a bunch of stuff that you're lugging around with you.
It is crazy. That is like the bane of every job is like, okay, I need to smuggle 30 kgs worth of hand luggage onto this flight. Like, so I've got uh we travel with two red Komodo X and the red V Raptor. And then with that is like, okay, we need a surf lens. So we got a long surf lens. And then it's like, okay, we need some lifestyle lenses. So let's bring us like a zoom as well. And then we're like, oh, if we want to shoot more cinematic, kind of like pretty looking stuff, let's take some like prime lenses, which are only one focal length. So you got to bring like three of them. And then there's just so much stuff. And then the tripod alone is like 12 kilograms that has to go in check luggage. And then you go to a tropical location. It's like, oh, let's bring a water housing as well so we can swim. And there's just so much stuff. So I usually have a wheelie bag that's I think it's about 13 to 15 kilos worth of gear. And then my backpack with my laptop and everything is probably another 13 to 15 as well. So I just like try and stick to one airline that I know will kind of like let me on. Um, so yeah, try and fly the same airline, rack up miles, and I know that my hand luggage allowance is a little bit more.
I'm really
But
interested to know about because obviously all this stuff is not cheap and the cost of it's quite there. You know, um,
yeah,
Do you do the sponsors pick stuff up like that, or is it kind of like you claim it back like a business would do, like over time, or um, because and it's like anything, right? Like surfboard design, like especially like in the wind sports, like windsurfing and kite surfing, like every single year there's a new sail or a new kite that comes out, there's a new camera that comes out. Technology
Yeah.
advances a little bit more, and you have to like you change it up a little bit. Do like the sponsors and stuff pick that stuff up, or not?
Um, no, it's usually just like I wish they would. That would be insane if I could just be like, "Oh, guys, this new lens came out. Just grab this for me." That would be mental. But it's all, and I suppose that's half the reason why you can justify charging the rates that you do, because I'm like, shit, I'm so invested here with the cameras. Like, I don't know, a couple. I mean, in rands, it's like a house basically. It's so expensive. So you got the expensive cameras and the lenses and all of that, and then the guys were like, and especially in JB, like, oh, we're a big brand, we have this many followers. Can you just shoot our surfers and do this edit for like some really good exposure? Like, fuck, I don't know. I'm pretty invested in all this gear, and I kind of need to pay it off at some point. So you kind of like have to charge for like almost like a rental of the gear as well as your time. So, but yeah, the brands always pick up everything else. Where like if we do these trips, then they pay flights, accommodation, food, all my expenses, and then pay a day rate for me. But as far as equipment, it's between myself and George. George is like, he'll FaceTime me, like when he had a second kid in the UK, he FaceTimes me, oh, I've just found this vintage camera store here. What's a good vintage lens I should be looking at? And then so it's either him buying the gear or myself, and then we just look after it like that. But yeah, George is all about like how we can just be that point of difference when it comes to quality. So he's happy to spend the whatever £10,000 for the new Mavic or whatever, or buy the latest red, because he knows that it benefits him as well. If his footage is like just a notch above everybody else on mirrorless cameras or whatever it is. So he definitely likes to have good gear.
It's mad, isn't it? Because surfing these days is not very much like, but back when we probably started surfing, and where it was like
Yeah.
magazine shots and surfing movies that came out. Now it's all like the short edits and short, fast, and sharp content that's pushed out there as well. You've always got to have like a little bit more of, I guess, a unique focus and way of doing something, so you can stand out. And if you're not in front of the camera these days, especially as a professional athlete, then it's a weird thing to say, but like you almost become not relevant. You could be the fucking bestest. You could be Kelly Slater,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, 11-time fucking world champion, absolute fucking goat of the sport. But if he's not in front of the camera and he's not doing stuff, then no one's going to know about it.
100%. It's like you don't exist. Like there's a couple guys and guys on tour too, where I'm like, this is some of the best surfing I have ever seen at these locations, and like no one's seeing it. Like there's nobody, no one's capturing it. There's no edits being done. There's like nothing, and which is like, I'm always in two minds. Like guys that just absolutely tear the bag out of it, and aren't doing it for clicks, anything like that. They're just doing it purely for the love of it. But at the same time, like shit, I feel like everyone else should be witnessing this. Like what I'm seeing here is like some of the craziest surfing I've ever seen. And but yeah, it's a tricky one. And it's painful at the time as well. A lot of time with George, where I'm like, bro, let's just go get these shots, let's do this, and we're like, fuck, oh, we don't really want to do it, and then we eventually get it done, and we're like, oh my god, bro, it came out so sick. We need to do this more often. Like, but yeah, it's just the act of like getting out and doing it. But
What do you
yeah,
think about do you think surf movies are kind of dead now, or is it just something that um is tied to kind of like the clips and social media because I remember the one of the first surfing films I ever bought was called What's Now, and it had like all the like Kelly Slater, Rob Machado, all those guys, that were in
Yeah.
it. And it was when Reservoir Dogs first came out, so it must have been like '96 or something like that. So I had it on like a VHS tape, and that was the thing that I watched over and
Yeah.
over again. So do you think that kind of format of like surfing film is kind of like dying a little bit, or is it still there?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I also grew up on all those like all those the momentums and all that sort of stuff, and I love it so much. But there's yeah, I don't know. Everything is so quick turnaround at the moment that it's like you filmed it today, it's got to be out tomorrow, and you like even between stops where it's like, okay, we've just finished Bells, we're leaving in 2 days. Our flight, we got to have this edit out before we leave Bells to because then it's irrelevant when you're at the next stop. And there's so many things like the guys are in similar situations where it's like, shit, the swells now. There's four other guys that are, I don't know, vlogging it or doing this, whatever. We need to get like our clips out now because they're going to be on the internet tonight. And um, for me, I'm like, I want to go back to that. I want to do just like punk rock surf movies, and I don't even want to put it online where we just tour it around and have like some live bands just playing like some shitty rock music and just have like a cool premiere of it. And if you're there, sick. If not, then maybe join the next one. And but yeah, it's tricky these days. I think everything's been done and done so well that it's hard to like separate yourself. I look at for me growing up on that, I love it and I love watching it, especially get like amp for surfs and things like that. I love watching that sort of stuff. But you watch something like by Pete Hamlin, who's I think my favorite surf movie creator, director, producer, who like his Let's Be Frank, his Risk movies, like that sort of stuff, I think is incredible. It's almost like Hollywood level film production in the surf space. And yeah, I'm like I must have watched Let's Be Frank like 100 times. I love it.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't think I've bought a surf film. I can't remember the last one I probably even bought like on DVD because it's like it's not
Yeah.
there anymore. I think I subscribed to a channel that basically had like thousands and thousands of surf movies all the way back to sort of like the 1970 VHS stuff that had been converted up onto sort of like the digital platform. And I used to love it. I used to love going into a surf shop and just like having a little browse through like the bookshelf and looking what movies are on there, or like whether the new Shelter films come out or the Moonshine conspiracy films. I used to love
Yeah.
them, like Shelter and Broken Down Melody and all those kind of things. They were so cool because they were almost like what you're doing now with George is the sort of like the fly on the wall documentary kind of thing that people want to see what happens in the background, but because like you say everything's so like in your face now, and it needs to be done really quickly and in your face, and otherwise it becomes irrelevant. It's almost like that long form is just like put into like a really bite-sized like TV series that isn't a TV series but it's on social media. Now if you went
Yeah.
back and compressed all that together, I reckon you'd have a pretty fucking cool surf film maybe. But
Yeah.
people's attention span is fucking shocking. Like my daughter and well, especially my daughter, she's nearly 13, and she can't watch like a film all the way through, like a 2 hour film. She'll watch 10 minutes of it, go, oh, this is boring, and she'll turn it off because that
Yeah,
attention span's not there. So I think it might be something to do with that too.
for sure. Yeah, that's 100% it. And I find myself as well also going that way where I'm like, you see the best surfing, the craziest things you've ever seen done on a surfboard in your life, and you just watch it for 10 seconds on Instagram, like, ah, cool, on to the next one, on to the next one. And then there's like something just as incredible that's next. And it's just so quick turnaround that you like constantly just like, oh, yeah, that's nice, on to the next. And even these surf films, we laugh. We shoot them on cinema cameras and these high-speed cameras, and put so much thought and love into these projects. And then it's like most people just like watch it on their phone and then like, oh yeah, that's cool. On to the next one. So it's and for me and George, and this is what I said, what we've been saying since the beginning, where it's like, you know what, bro, we're not chasing an algorithm. We're not like, let's just make stuff we think is cool. And then hopefully other people will find it cool as well. Like the West Stars edit in particular was like, we had such beautiful footage of the box shot on that high speed camera. I was like, you know what, bro, I'm just going to run the first 5 minutes of this thing all in slow mo. I don't even care. I think it's cool. So I'm just going to run it. And thankfully, it looked like it was well received, which is cool. But yeah, the whole thing is just like, oh, we're just gonna do what we think is nice, and hopefully it resonates with some people.
Yeah, I mean some of the footage that you took from, especially when Jordy was at Margaret's, and even the El Salvador stuff was pretty sick as well. With having that technology there, it makes something just like that a little bit more special. But I think, I think it was like 9 or 10 months ago, or maybe even over a year ago now. I remember you put something up on there, and it looked like really grained footage. And I said to you, I goes, "What are you shooting on there?" And he goes, "Oh, it's my old Sony Handycam." And I went, "Mate, I've got fucking one of them in my garage." And I went back in the house and I grabbed it, and I was like, "Yeah, look at this." And I got loads of old video of what like surfing, like Dreamlands and Ulus and stuff on there when I went with my mates like fucking 20 years ago. It's great.
Insane, bro. How good is it? I'm like, it's for me, those handicaps, like my whole childhood was like shot on those things, and that's what I started on. I've got footage of Jaws when I was like, I think he must have been 13 or 14, and we were just hanging at our mate's house in St. Francis, just like talking shit, and I was just filming stuff, and I've just found in storage all those old tapes that I'd shot back then. And I'm like, I love the look of that camera, to the point where like I helped shoot like a film on wrist 2 years ago, and the A camera was the red, like beautiful stuff, like in top of the range, like incredible stuff, and the B camera was two handicaps from 1992 or whatever. And yeah, I love them. I'm obsessed with them. I have so much stuff as well that I've shot on the road on those cameras as well, that I'm like, I don't know, I need to save it for like, I don't know, a documentary or something cool, all behind the scenes. Nobody like stops you if you're carrying around those cameras and shooting on them. No one in the athlete zone, nobody in anywhere you're not supposed to be shooting. You have one of those. No one's like, oh, the professional camera equipment. They're just like, I was this dork shooting with a camera from 1990. I mean, it's not going to be up on Instagram tonight.
You mentioned you had your handycams back in like the early 90s and stuff when you were a teenager. How did the whole photography gig kind of like grab hold of you? How did you get into it and get to the kind of the space you're in now?
Jeez, I started. I was surfing, competing. I loved it more than anything. And one night we were like skating. I was skating from a friend's house back down to another one of my friend's house, like down a steep hill. And I ended up bailing, and I fell and I broke my arm. So I was out the water for like whatever it is, a month, 2 months, with a cast on my arm. And I was like, shit, well, I'm not going to sit at home by myself. All my mates are surfing. So my mom had this handy cam. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just film him surfing. And then maybe if we have some footage afterwards, then I'll like try and cut him like a surf movie together, like a Momentum or one of these old things. I was obsessed with it. And I did that, and I was like, shit, I think I enjoy this more than I actually enjoy surfing. And I wasn't like the best surfer either. So it just started like that. And then when I got back into surfing, my brother started filming, and then I was just doing editing with his footage. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. It's just making terrible surf films of my mates. Uh, and then the Jordy thing I think was pretty funny. He came down. I'd been shooting for a couple of years on like proper cameras, doing like silly little edits here. And he arrived just before the J Bay opened the 1 year, and Bruce's Beauties was pretty good in front of where I was living in St. Francis, and he went for a surf, and I just shot. I was like, "Oh, George is out." I grabbed my camera and I just shot him, and I cut and edit together afterwards, and it was terrible. But he, yeah, he saw it, and then he wanted to strike to like up in West Africa. Wanted to do a surf strike up there, and his filmer at the time was American and couldn't get a visa to go in there. So last minute he called me. He's like, "Hey, we're going to this place in like 3 days. Do you want to come? Like, I need a filmer." Like, shit, okay. He's like, "Have you shot on a red before?" I'm like, "I don't even know what that is." And a mate of mine who was also going with that lived like maybe 10 minutes from me was like, "Oh, just come to my house, grab the red, you can fiddle around with it, figure it out, and then we leave in 2 days." So like sick, figured it out, did that trip with him. And I mean, we got pretty skunked for what we were expecting, but it was, yeah. I mean, I enjoy traveling with George. I've known him for years, so I think we like work together well. And yeah, it was just the right place at the right time, sort of thing, I think.
Yeah, the majority of stories that come out of things like that are just being in the right place at the right time and I guess the right space as well. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like the same thing for me. I never ever thought that when I left the Marines, I was going to end up, running my own jiu-jitsu gym. Fucking 12 years before, and I hated it. I detested, like what we were just talking
Yeah.
about. I thought it was, um, I thought it was probably one of the most homosexual things I've ever seen in my life. But
Yeah.
and now I am where I am. So, just being in the right place at the right time can create some things. If you want to go into the whole sort of like fate and being in the right place for the cosmos to pull you in and all that sort of shit, then
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that works too. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's it. Yeah, it's so funny. I'm just like, yeah, I'm super thankful. George has done so much for me. I mean, if even like the work stuff that we do, if I was in my 20s and I was doing this, like I wouldn't want to get paid for it. I was like, "This is so sick." I'm traveling with a mate of mine, kind of filming and doing all the stuff that I love, doing the edits and which is what I love the most is actually the editing part of it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would do it for free. I would do it for nothing. I'd be stoked just to be able to do it, you know. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, with
I definitely feel that because I do a lot of my stuff that I do here, especially with the podcast. It's a little bit more difficult because I'm a I'm a proper tight ass with stuff. So
yeah,
and I can't justify buying hundreds of pounds worth of editing kit. So I use like short form stuff like CapCut and all that sort of thing. But
yeah,
I do feel where you're coming from, where like it's weird that creativity thing that your brain's like sends to the rest of your body. Those endorphin releases where you find something and you put a bit stuff together and you start linking some good footage that you know's good and you put it right and then you put some music to it and you go, do you know what? That's fucking cool, man.
yeah. It's like and so sick and so rewarding afterwards as well. And it's so funny. People like they ask me, "Hey, is like they send me stuff. Hey, is this edit good? You know, what do you think of this?" I'm like, the beauty of the editing and like surf movies or just movies like anything in general, I think is with this thing, it's such a subjective thing that I don't think there's a wrong or right way to do anything. Like I'm like, fuck, if I create something I think is sick, then I'm happy with it, you know. And like the same with other people, like oh no, you know, they might think I don't know, my favorite movie of all time is an absolute piece of shit, and I'm like obsessed with it. So it's so difficult to please anyone, and I don't think that there's like a wrong way or right way to do anything. I think you must just like play around with it and whatever. If you think something is cool, I'm like then it's cool, you know. And I'm trying to carry that through in the edits as well. Where I'm like, you know what, I think this is pretty cool. Maybe hopefully other people do too, you know.
How do you get to do you get to surf much when you're traveling to all these places? Because you followed Jord, or you and Jordy go around all the different spots on the CT, and you know, you must visit some really sort of like quality places as well. And you know, when they run the competitions, they don't want to run them in like substandard conditions, even though they do sometimes.
Yeah.
So you know, you must see some pretty sweet sights. And do you get to experience that yourself?
It's crazy. There's the amount of stops on tour with like world class waves within like 5 to 10 minute drive of all these stops is crazy. You go to West Oz. I'm like, you could shoot a whole surf film in like one run of swell here. You can go like wherever, cobbles and get crazy performance airs, that sort of stuff. You go to the box and get terrifying slabs. You can get like main break where it's like kind of just big man turns, and there's just so much variety at all these stops. And I'm yeah, it's there's so many good waves. But for me, I mean, I get to surf. Uh, I should definitely surf more, but I prefer like we go to Hawaii, I'll go to VLAND. Like I think it's one of the best waves in the world. We go to Portugal, and like Super Chubas is the gnarliest beach break, and I'll surf that wedge that's in the corner against the harbor wall there, and you know it's slightly more user friendly waves for me. I tend to enjoy more than shit. I might die here today. So, and even with the jiu-jitsu stuff, I'm also like, I try every stop, every place we go to, I pack a gi. I don't care. I'll pay for an extra bag. I'm taking a gi with me, and and then always at the end of the year, I'm like, shit. I actually don't think about how like risky it could be, and I do stupid stuff on the mat too. I'm like, the guys want to play leg locks, like I'll 100% like play with leg lock shootouts and that sort of stuff. I love it. And then afterwards, I'm like, shit, that's pretty dumb. If I like tear an ACL and I'm not able to walk down the beach, like I'm gonna go home and not be able to work.
Yeah, I'm very similar. Like, you know, because I'm the only instructor in my gym, is that if I end up doing exactly the same thing, playing the leg lock game or doing some crazy ass, you know, bolo roll or something like that with a bloke that's twice my weight, um, I'm 43 years old, and you know, and I've been carrying heavy backpacks for a fucking long time.
Yeah,
You know, doing that and putting myself out, it basically means that, you know, I could potentially lose my business because I can't do something for a certain amount of time. Not that that would happen, because there are other, you know, people there that are going to help out, but
yeah,
you've always got this little niggling feeling at the you know, at the back of your head. And one of the other things is that I like to I mean, I'm quite a solitary person sometimes. I like to surf on my own. Even if I go with a group of people, I'll always be that guy that fucking paddles off on his own to get away from the crowd. And
yeah,
I was surfing one of a point break a while ago. I don't know whether you can see it. No, it's on this side of my head. I got a
yeah,
massive scar running down my head, and I caught the set wave. I'd rode it all the way into the inside, and it was that classic. It was the last one I'm going to get. I'm going to go in, and as I kicked out, it weirdly bobbled in the white water and pinged back on the leash, and the rail came
oh,
down and hit me right in the head, and like split my head like wide open. You could see my skull. And there was like, I
oh,
was in the middle of nowhere. I was pretty much on my own, and I got out, and there's a bunch of tourists walking around like this little village, like looking at me. My face was just like, it was something like out of a Predator film, you know, like I had blood
yeah,
all down the side of my face, all down my wetsuit. And I was contemplating, like, do I go to the local hospital, or do I drive home and then do it there? So I drove all the way home, which is about a 2 hour drive. And by the time
yeah,
I got back, they're like, we can't do anything with this. We can't stitch it because it's like it's congealed and healed. So they just glued it back together. But like, I'm always really conscious when I do stuff like that, because I'm on my own. And I was just like, what would have happened if I got knocked out
yeah,
or something, like, you know? I mean, you go to some fucking awesome places, and it's always going to be quite busy. There's always going to be people around, but yeah,
yeah.
it can be a bit intimidating sometimes.
100% for sure. It's so funny how often it's always like I'm just gonna get one more, and it's always that last one that's like something like that'll happen. You know, it's even George was funny after he won West Oz. the first thing he said to me is like, "Fuck, bro, I'm so rattled." He's like, "I thought I lost my eye in that heat." Like, what are you talking about? He's like, "No." After the second wave, his leash pulled back and it hit him like just between his eyebrow and his eye, like connected him in there. He's like, felt like it like went in the socket and then out, and he was so like obviously stoked on the win, but he was just still like so rattled, like, "Fuck, I thought I lost my eye."
There's a
But
guy called John Jameson who I don't know why I'm pointing behind me. There's no one behind me. He's not even behind me. This guy called John Jameson who lives down the road, and he organises boat trips like out to Indo and the Mentawis and stuff. And he said one year he went out there, and these guys, they're called sort of like middle-aged men and stuff like that. You know, they surf quite a bit, but you know, and they were surfing this one spot one day, and he basically said to them all, "Look, by the time you get to this point, you know, where this boil is here, make sure you kick out because it closes out and then sucks you down. Like, you know, you're going to hit the reef or you're going to get smashed, basically." And this guy was like far too deep. He was super tired. He'd surf for a couple of hours maybe, and and John said he turned around and watched this guy, and he paddled into this wave and, you know, got smashed. And he came back up and he was like holding his eye. And basically what had happened was, it's pretty fucking grim. The
yeah.
board had come back nose first and done exactly the same as what you just described, but gone into his eye socket and pulled his eye out, and his eye was just hanging out of his, his skull
Fuck.
by his retina and his nerves, man. So they
Oh
managed to
my
get him back to
God.
the boat and got him back to the mainland, and he got his eye put back in, and he didn't lose his eye in the end, thankfully. But like, it's fucking insane, man.
Fuck, that is crazy that at that point they can still save the eye. Like it that freaks me out. I'm I don't know I don't know if I'm just getting old or what, but I'm so like I feel like I'm so like nervous of everything, you know. You surf and I'm like, oh, the rock jump off looks a little sketchy. Maybe I'll go paddle out at the beach break rather, you know, like I'll go around the back where it's a little easier. And those sorts of stories, like fucking they freak me out, man. That's crazy.
What's the worst and the best parts of your job, like traveling around and
Mm, the best part, um, I think traveling with a friend of mine and able to create something that we think is pretty cool together. You know, it's always so rewarding afterwards. Like just looking back at the stuff, I'm like, fuck, that was so fun. And even now, this Oz leg was probably one of my favorite trips I've ever done, and it was 2 months long away from family, which is hectic. But I'm so thankful that we had such a good crew with us. It was myself and George, and then we travel with his coach and his basically like his second dad. You know, he's this guy from O'Neill Garth, and he's the biggest legend ever. So the the vibes are always so high. Everyone is upbeat every day. There's no like downers, no bickering, there's no dramas at all. Just like such a good time on the road. And what's the word? The worst part is just being away from family. You know, I it's such a struggle. Shame my youngest kid is 5, and I think this last trip I did was 2 months long. It's probably the longest one I've done in 3 years. And the last 3 4 days of it, he just went like he wouldn't speak to his teachers, he wouldn't talk to anyone. He was just like completely just shut off. And then as soon as I got home, he was like, click back in, everything's all good, back to normal. So yeah, it's always hard being away from family, you know.
it's weird, isn't it? Like my you know, I'm quite lucky in the fact that when I was away, the first half of my military career, you know, I was away quite a lot, and I didn't
Yeah.
have any kids then, so I had kids basically when I became a physical training instructor within the Marines. And where I live is, you know, everywhere I was based, I was within an hour and a half, sort of like driving. So there was the odd night here or there that I stayed. But it's like it's now my son's 8, my daughter's she's nearly 13, and
Yeah.
my son now he's just amazing. And I never kind of really understood how people got, this is going to sound really weird, like having older kids, right? But
Yeah.
how my kids are connected to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, the last couple of days, like when I go and teach, I'm literally away from home like a couple of hours in the evening. So I pick him up, I take him to school, I pick him up from school, sometimes make him dinner. Then they go away and teach. And then when they come home, he comes fucking belting down the stairs and jumps on me and gives me a hug and goes, "Oh, I missed you." And it's like,
Yeah.
I've only been gone 2 hours, you know, and I've got mates now that are still serving or in the special forces as well. And, you know, they're away for like, you know, 4, 5, 6 months at a time. And some of them have missed like big chunks of their sort of like kids and families' lives. And, you know, it's the sacrifice you make to kind of do that, because in my head when I was doing it, it was like, if I don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. So, you know, you
Yeah.
might call yourself a personal martyr, maybe, I don't know. And
Yeah.
but I can't imagine being in their shoes and having older kids and coming back and not being able to deal with that. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I'm just quite thankful and grateful now that I've been through it, and I'm not, you know, not in the, I don't put them through it all the time, which is what I'm trying to say, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. My thing now is like, I'm gonna do max 2 week trips. I'd rather do 2 week trips. I think is manageable for the kids, for everyone. Because yeah, it's so tricky. Where I live in St. Francis, it's such a small like surf fishing village that a lot of people they take these jobs working on the rigs, or you know, working offshore somewhere. The guys they go for, maybe their rotation is like 2 months on, 2 months off, or whatever it is. They freelance, and sometimes they get a job for like 4 months. And before I even started doing this job, I remember like watching it and just being like, fuck, it's so tricky. Like these, you know, it must be so hard for everyone involved in the family. And so now I'm like, I'm the one that's having to go away and do it, but it's like, shit, you got to keep the lights on at home. So, you know, we got to do it. Rather that than be than have no money and, you know, struggling here, especially in South Africa. It's, if you can earn dollars and live in South Africa, I mean, they go so far here, so it's, you know, it makes it worthwhile. Go away for 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever. You can come home and it's like, okay, that can see you for a while. You know, that'll keep you going.
Yeah, it does. It does make it worthwhile in the end, I think. But especially when you've got like a cool job like you have, you know, and there's definite longevity in it as
Yeah,
well. You know, I can't see the future, and you can't see the future. But let's just say, for instance, you know, in 5 to 10 years' time, something happens, and maybe you're not working with Jordy anymore. But because you've done the things that you've done, you've kind of set your path and your and sort of like your legacy in place. I think you're always gonna have work. And what I think is also really cool, especially in this space where, you know, you can put your face on the camera, I can put my face on the camera and stuff as well, as like when your kids are older, they can go back and go, my fucking dad did that.
yeah,
That's my dad on there, you know, and they can go back and they can see it. And like, you know, when my parents grew up, and I would probably suggest, like, you know, when your parents grew up, they've maybe got the odd Polaroid here and there, or like, you know,
yeah,
they've got old stories that they might tell, but they might not tell everything. You know, I think social media has got a
yeah.
negative but also a great positive on it as well, where like you can tell a story, and you can almost make a long life film, really.
For sure. Yeah, you documenting these periods in your life, like weekly sometimes, or monthly. Um, but yeah, this like traveling for work thing, I couldn't do it if like my job was shit. Like a lot of the guys that work on the rigs or do set diving, and I'm like, fuck, I would die, bro. At least I go away, I'm like, And that's why I can't really complain. It's like shit, I'm going to Hawaii, I'm going to El Salvador, I'm going to Oz, I'm going to such cool places. But it's just a time away from family is the thing. If yeah, I don't think I would survive doing one of those gnarly jobs, you know.
What is probably what's the best place on tour, do you reckon, that you go that is most favorable for you and maybe for Jordy as well?
Um, fuck, it's so everyone always asks me like what my favorite stop is on tour, and they all have such a unique, like something special about them. Like I never wanted to go to El Salvador ever, and I ended up going there. The people were flipping incredible. The food is good. The waves are firing around every corner. You know, every place has something so special. Even like a G-land, there's nothing there but a wave and you know whoever's in the camps with you. And they're so sick. But in terms of like a very biased opinion, J-Bay is just like it's something else. I don't know. It's for a spectator, you go to that event and it is like, yeah, I don't know. It's just so geared. It's like because you're sitting up above the wave. You can see it from start to finish. It's like you're sitting in the grandstands there, just looking down on it. It's insane. And obviously, George out there is just, it's whenever I'm in Java and it fills up hard drives, I film them in like high frame rates and you just see how technical every little turn is, so it's I mean he's so good out there, and I get to sleep in my own bed and shoot. So you know, sleep in my own bed, drive there in the morning. It's just too easy, you know. It's my favorite stop for sure. Um, and then yeah, it's also like J-Bay's crazy, bro. It's like every single night there's a massive party in the park there, and the guys set up this big festival. So it's every night is like they throw these parties, then the surfing is in the morning, and it's just such a cool environment, you know, always like such a buzz around town.
I, I haven't surfed J Bay, and it's probably, I guess, would be on one of my wish lists. I think I've surfed every wave that I grew up with wanting to surf. I surfed Ulus, I surfed G-Land. They
Yeah.
were the two main ones, really. Actually, I got.
Yeah.
I'm I'm writing a book at the moment, and it's about like all the crazy shit that happened to me in Afghan, but all like the surf trips I did on my own. So in between like my leave periods that I did, I had a couple of months off, so I just grabbed my board and my backpack, and I went, fuck it, I'm going. So like, traveling to the weird and wonderful places around sort of like Bali and Lombok, and meeting up with making friends with some of the locals that live down in G-land, and living in the jungle there, and driving down to sort of like the outer realms of the surf camps because I couldn't afford to stay there and shit. And yeah,
Yeah.
just some like crazy stories about that. And yeah, it's I just love those places. A friend of mine called Tom Anderson, he wrote a book called Grey Skies and Green Waves, and the whole premise of the book was kind of building up to go to surf Jeffreys Bay. That it was like his iconic sort of like end of wave story sort of thing. And the Navy have done a couple of surf trips out there, and I've missed them, and I'm like, oh, man, one day I'm gonna say one day, and I will say one day that I will get out
Yeah.
there and surf it. So yeah, it's one of my, I think, what you would say a bucket list, but I don't like using that because it means I'm old. So it's going to be one of those waves I am going to surf in the next few years, I hope.
100%. And we can, I mean, organize a whole like bro, you can run a couple seminars here if you want, and it'll probably end up like I don't know, you could pay off your ticket and be get a J-Bay trip out of it, and J-Bay is it's such an incredible wave. It's like these long walls. It's just so beautiful, and the lineup is also super friendly for such a world class wave that your first time in South Africa to J Bay, you know, your chances of getting a set are pretty good. Uh, compared to Oz and Hawaii and all these places, there's very few surfers in this country. So, I mean, it's probably the most crowded place in South Africa, but in terms of like crowds worldwide, it's like doesn't there's barely anybody out, and you can take off anywhere along that whole point and get such good waves. Or maybe supers is like, I don't know, maybe a weird section on it or whatever, and you just want to go further down the point, you go to tubes, and then it's like some of the funnest waves you've ever seen. And then if you just want a more cruisier wave, it also gives some good sections. You go down to points or albatross, or there's so many options. Even like slightly more beginner surfers, maybe Cape St. Francis, where it's you can paddle out your hair dry, you can surf for 2 hours, hair dry, paddle in at the beach break. It's just so there's a way for everyone here. And for me, another extremely biased opinion, I'm like, this for me is the best place in the world. Like St. Francis Bay, Cape St. Francis, J Bay area. I love it. I always look forward to coming home. Uh, it's just the whole thing about it. Incredible community. There's like some world-class restaurants. A friend of mine has this restaurant called Nevermind at the Lighthouse that is like better than any food I've eaten in my life. It's when the weather's good, no one even messages each other. We just go, everyone meets at the corner there in Cape St. Francis. Everyone makes a braai. The kids are swimming until dark, and then we go. That's like the daily routine, and uh, it's for me, it's the best place in the world.
You just sold it to me there. Surf and Bryce,
Yeah.
I got a few South African friends and they love the food as well, especially the meat. So yeah, I'm all over that shit.
Yeah, bro, and that's the thing. Our mates are all like they love hunting. Dan Thornton and Wes, and there's a couple other friends. They every month or 2 months or so they just go up into the bushes. They go hunting for like a week, 10 days, and they come back with like 8 months supply of meats. They supply like the restaurant down here, and obviously just fill up their freezers. And it's just amazing. My kids are now like, I bring them like beef biltong, and they're like, oh, what is this stuff? Like, they want like, like in springbuck biltong. I'm like, shit, okay. I need to start hunting.
There's a lot of South African guys that have set up biltong sort of like businesses. Like you get the biltong in the little plastic bags and stuff, like like a pack of chips or something like that.
Yeah.
But are you talking about kind of inspirations there? Really, the video you did of Dan a few years ago was kind of like the inspiration why I wanted to get in touch with him, because when I was in the Marines, I always tried to get in touch with Dan because Dan was in the same branch as I was. He was in anti-tanks, but
No way.
we weren't in sort of like the same sort of cycle. So like he was
Yeah.
always like in another unit. He was never in the same unit that I was. I loved surfing. There was only like a handful of people at the time that were, keen surfers within the Marines. And one of my friends, Freddie, we used to go all the time and stuff. And I knew that, he was sort of like, yeah, I don't know what you would call it, like semi-pro or was nearly pro or
Yeah.
something. I knew he was a good surfer and I knew he was an officer. But I never ended up kind of catching up with him. So when you made that short edit of him, and I reached out onto him on LinkedIn and did that double episode of the podcast with him, and it was just really cool. And I kind of regret not like putting a little bit more effort into catching up with him. But the inspiration thing is kind of like you kind of triggered that. So this is like a leading question. So what are your inspirations when you're making films?
My inspirations. Um, Jeez, I see some of the stuff that these younger guys are putting out, and it blows my mind. And I always try to recreate it, but these guys are so talented that I battle to even come close to the stuff they're doing. There's guys like Andy Woodward. I love his stuff. Probably a favorite of mine is a guy named Morgan Marson, and he does the most incredible work in terms of cinematography, his editing style. It's beautiful. And then for full films, Peter Hamlin for me is number one. Yeah, I watch his stuff still that he's made in the last however many years, and I'm like blown away by how much time, effort, thought, planning, everything gets put into the smallest little details. And yeah, I was lucky enough to shoot a project with him, and just being able to speak to him about stuff and bounce stuff off him was like incredible. Just picking his brain, all these little things, and yeah, you know when you spend time with somebody and you speak to them, and it like inspires you so much. They're always just like, yeah, bro, you should do it. Just do it. And I'm like, fuck, you're right. I should actually just like go and do this. And I'll send him like a draft cut of something, and then he'll send me back what he thinks. And so it's yeah, these guys are just their work is incredible, and they're also such good people, like such cool people to hang out with. Um, but yeah, that's if you haven't seen their stuff, Andy Woodward, Morgan Marson, Peter Hamlin are insane.
I'll check them out. I probably am following them. I've got fucking a million
Yeah,
people that are on there anyway. But yeah, I'll definitely check them out. I'll put them in the bio links, maybe. I don't know.
yeah. That's it.
But,
I'll send it to you.
mate, I'm going to finish this off. We've been going an hour with a bit of a quick fire round. So you can make these answers as long or as short as you can, even if there is a quick fire round. But yeah. So, first question is, what is the favorite film clip you've made?
My favorite film clip, I think, full movie plus 27. In terms of a clip, I think probably the West Oz edits I did recently.
Nice. What is the most dangerous place you filmed?
Most dangerous place I filmed? Probably shit, I don't know. It's probably South Coast, South Africa. Yeah, it's scary.
The best wave to film.
Best wave to film? Uh, I love filming J-Bay. I think it's just because I've filmed it so much. I absolutely love filming it. J-Bay or yeah, I'd say J-Bay.
Wave pools, are they a positive or a negative thing for surfing?
Positive for sure. I think if you watch the Groms now, and if you like trying to learn how to do airs, or even just trying to learn how to surf properly, you can get that same looking wave every single time. That you can push a 8, 9, 10-year-old, 15-year-old, 20-year-old into to kind of get used to the wave energy taking you. You stand up, you go down the line, learn how to bottom turn, all that sort of stuff. I think is incredible.
And I'm going to put you on the spot with this question. Is it Jordy's year this year?
Oh, 100%. I'm backing him 100%. And it's funny. He's been doing so well and surfing. And I said it to him at the beginning of the year. I said, "This is the best I've seen you surf, I think, ever." And it's funny because it's almost like the pressure's off. Like there's just like, you know what, we're gonna surf and have fun. Let's just go and have fun. We don't need to overthink this. Boards are feeling good. Let's just go and enjoy it. This thing isn't gonna. You don't have another 20, 30 years on the tour. It's could be gone tomorrow. So might as well just have fun.
I mean, I've had him marked for winning it. The last few years, you can kind of see the kind of slow build where I think there was a point maybe 2 or 3 years ago where it just kind of he was just like chugging along on the tour a little bit, and then something just clicked, and he just started pulling better performances out. And now after winning Margaret River and Surf City, you can see like you know, it's definitely on the cards for this year. And, you know, if the consistency stays there with the way that he's surfing, you know, the probability, you know, the percentage gets higher and higher, I reckon, as the season goes on.
Yeah, 100%. And it's so funny. We do all these comps, and you know, he wins this, and he's number one in the world. He's the king. And then you know, you go home, you still got to change your kids' shitty nappies. If you don't play Lego with your son, you know, he thinks you're a dork. You know, so it's always such a good perspective thing where it's you know, it's surfing is it's fun. You know, it's what a lot of guys are lucky enough to do as a profession, and you know, I think it should be treated like that. It's such an incredible thing.
Especially when you go in the water as well. Like, you know, my whole podcast is called the Grumpy Surfer Podcast, right? But like you're saying, like, surfing is supposed to be fun. It's like, it's the outlet, it's the anchor, it's the thing that people do to get away from reality a little bit and go and enjoy the power of the ocean and sit there and watch and chat with some friends. Or if you've got no friends like me, you just kind of like chilling out and
Yeah.
and just kind of like, you know, having a little zen moment while you're there, where, you know, some people go out there and can be a little bit aggro, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? And I don't know whether that's just kind of like an age thing, maybe. I don't know, that the perspective looking back on it, maybe if I was like 20 odd and I could surf the way that I do now when I was 20, then maybe my perspective might be a little bit different. But yeah, it's all about having fun.
100%. I'm always baffled by the guy. You go surf like a shitty point break in Cape St. Francis, and the guys are wanting to fight each other over like 2 foot sloppy waves. Fucking hell. If I like get to that point where I'm fighting people over these shitty burgery waves, like that's when I know I need to quit.
Yeah.
If it's not fun anymore.
Mate, it's been amazing talking to you on the podcast, and I'm glad we've eventually caught up with you. So, yeah, I'm going to keep following you. I'll put all of your stuff into the links and the bios, and yeah, keep up the good work, man.
Legend, bro. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm stoked. I'm stoked. I was finally able to make it.
Awesome, mate. Cheers,
Cool.
buddy.
Thank you, bro. Have a good one.
And that's it. If you like the podcast, please like, share, and subscribe on your podcast provider. And also leave us a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening.